Hello, and welcome to our pre-service session on writing anecdotal notes and creating intentional lesson plans in COR. I'm Sasha Edmondson, Child Developmental Specialist.
And I'm Kimberly Cole Murray. I'm also a child development specialist.
Matrix Human Services has a mission and a vision statement, so we'll give you a few moments to look over those before we proceed. The objective of this pre-service is to tell the importance of anecdotal note taking, how to write a complete anecdotal note, when to take anecdotal notes, identifying core categories and scoring anecdotal notes, and lesson planning and Core Advantage online. Policy writing for anecdotal notes. Teachers must use a variety of strategies to promote and support children's learning and developmental progress based on the observations and ongoing assessments of each child. Kim?
All right. So anecdotal notes allow for teachers to see where children are developmentally and how they can plan meaningful experiences to further children's interest in learning for later educational attainment. Anecdotal notes give a view of the whole child. Notes give teachers insight on how children initiate their own learning. So why do we take anecdotal notes? Well, anecdotal notes gives the teacher or caregivers a current snapshot of where children are, especially in the beginning of the school year when our children are new to us, we are learning our children. So as we make these observations and record what we see, we are gathering notes about the children, what they like to do, where they are, who they interact with, and all of that gives us a quick little picture of who these children are. Anecdotal notes also informs planning. It gives teachers an opportunity to see what materials children are interested in, who they are interested in interacting with in the classroom, if they're making friends. And then teachers can take this information and they can plan experiences based on the materials that the children like, what supporting materials can be used to help further their interest in those materials, what type of activities can be developed in order to help the children interact with others and develop friendships and gather social and emotional understanding. These plans also can help teachers with IOP goals, personal goals they may have for the children, as well as milestones and seeing if their children are developing along the milestones that are expected for children of their age. Our anecdotal notes also provides us with feedback that we use in our program. And this feedback helps us to determine professional development, not only for teachers, but also for the child development specialists. As we look at the notes that you have entered and we get reports that have been developed from those notes that you've entered, we can then make better decisions on what type of professional development is needed for teachers and what type of professional development is needed for child development specialists or other program staff in order to best support our teachers and improve outcomes for our program. So here we have a video that is going to talk about collecting and using anecdotal notes.
Go.
Welcome. In this short presentation, I will introduce you to the use of anecdotal records as one way to document your observations of children in your classroom. The National Center on Quality Teaching and Learning uses the House framework to illustrate the effective everyday practices that support school readiness for all children. Ongoing child assessment is an essential feature of a comprehensive framework for quality teaching and learning. What are anecdotal records? You may already be collecting them. An anecdotal record is a written record or note of what a child says or does within the context of classroom activities and routines. The use of anecdotal records is one way to collect information about children's development and learning. These records or notes are one way to document your observations. In addition, collecting anecdotal records is an example of authentic assessment. The assessment information is collected in real-life learning experiences and activities, while playing at the sensory table, building with blocks, having a snack, or exploring the playground. Let's listen to teachers talk about how they collect and use anecdotal records in their own classrooms.
Your car and he put it away for you. That was very nice. We do take anecdotal records. Lots of teachers use labels because they're easy to keep in your pockets or keep on the counter.
Draw a line.
Draw a line. A. M. Generally what I do is I carry around a little clipboard and I place these stickers on them. And each area is listed so I know what I need for that child specifically for this tool. So I'd go around and throughout the month I'm collecting information on the children. And so basically the teachable moments or the observations that I do, I'm jotting down this information, I'm sticking it on here. So I only have to do it one time. So I write it on the sticker and then I'll just come and place it where it belongs in our observation. Hey, Sierra, there you go.
Teachers have figured out all sorts of ways to take anecdotal records in their busy classrooms. Teachers use clipboards and notepads, sticky notes, and mailing labels, just to name a few. Regardless, the note needs to include some basic information: the child's name or initials, the date, the time, and the setting, a clear description of the observation, and the name of the observer. Always include the child's name or initials and the date. You don't want to end up with a pile of notes but no idea who they were about. You also don't want to think that just one or two notes will be enough. By collecting anecdotal records on a regular basis, you are creating a record of the child's learning and progress over time. This cycle reminds us that effective teaching and effective ongoing child assessment require that the teacher observe, document observations, interpret the findings, and then use those interpretations or understandings in order to make teaching more purposeful. In this module, we've highlighted the use of anecdotal records or notes as one way to document your observations. But those notes only become valuable when you put them to use. Use the information to plan learning activities and experiences, and then to change those plans as needed, to make sure that the child or group of children takes full advantage of the learning activities. For more information and tips for collecting and using child assessment by using anecdotal records or other methods, see our series on ongoing child assessment. For more information on how to use anecdotal records in your classroom, see the in-service on collecting and using anecdotal records.
So as you can see from the video gave us an overview of anecdotal notes. Why do we take anecdotal notes, how to write anecdotal notes, and what we use anecdotal notes for. In this slide, you will see an example of a chart that is used to record anecdotal notes. Many of you have your own way of recording your anecdotal notes, which could be sticky notes where you jot down notes when you are observing the children in the classroom. You may have a spiral notebook or some type of journal or clipboard to write down your notes on the children. This chart here is just another example of how you can record your notes. What I like about this chart is that across the top of the chart, there's a space for the children that are in your group that you are responsible for writing notes on or being the primary caregiver or teacher for those children. Along the left-hand side of this chart, you can write down the part or events of the day. So where these two columns collide, the top column and the left-hand column, where they come together as a point is where you can write your note for that child for that part of the day. So for example, the note for Sophia says, Sophia, puts her backpack away. When did she put her backpack away? She put her backpack away during arrival time. So here you just have to concentrate on what happened. Just describe the action that happened. When you're using this type of chart, it will tell you during what part of the day if you fill that out. And it will also alert you to what child it is when you are choosing to select the correct column. The one thing that this chart does not do is have a space for the date. So if you're going to use this chart to record your anecdotal notes, you can have a space at the top. You can just write down what the date is. If you're going to use one of these charts per day, you can take this type of chart and you can use it for more than one day or for the week. And the only thing that I would suggest is within that box where you put your anecdotal note or your observation, I would also include the date. You do not have to use this chart, but this chart is available to you. All you have to do is ask your child development specialist. But I think it's an easy way for you to keep track of your children and your notes, because you do not then have to write down the part of the day or who the child is because it's already on your chart. You can just concentrate on writing down what you saw or what you heard the child do. So how do you write a comprehensive note? Notes should be objective and only describe what the child did or said. And you can use quotes if possible. Notes should be factual in that they only describe behaviors and not interpret them. So what do I mean by that? I want you to take a look at that last area on this screen, and it says refrain from using opinionated or assumptive language such as thinks, because, feeling, probably, etc. So what I mean by that is when you're writing your anecdotal note, you just want to write what you saw or heard. You do not want to explain anything. For example, we do not want to say Johnny is crying because his mom is leaving. We don't know that he's crying because his mother left. He could be crying because he's hungry. He didn't have breakfast that morning. He could be crying because he's in a bad mood. He could be crying because his diaper is wet. There are various reasons why Johnny could be crying. So we want to refrain from using words that put our opinion or our assumptions into the note. You just want to stick to what you saw or what you heard or what that child did. So, components of a comprehensive note. As you heard in the video, you want your notes to be complete. A complete note consists of the date, who the note is about, so what child or children were involved in this observation that you're writing about, what actions occurred? What did you see the child do? What did you see, or what did you hear the child say? So you just want to be very specific within that action. When, what part of the daily schedule did this happen? And that previous chart we looked at can really help you with that, because along the left-hand side, you can have on your chart the part of the day. So you don't even really have to write that. You just pinpoint the part of the day, write down your note. Okay, so what part of the schedule did this take place? Was it during choice time? Was it during outdoor time? Was it during meal time? When did it happen? Where in the classroom did the event take place? Was it on the carpet? Was it at the table during small group? So all of these components should be included in your note. The very last line says, what core item does this note fall under to score? Now, you do not have to put that inside of your anecdotal note, but you want to be aware as to where I'm going to place this note. Why is this observation meaningful? What information am I getting from it? And what is it telling me about the development of the child? So even though you do not have to include that within your note, keep in mind where you're going to place your note. So here we have some sample anecdotal notes. On July the 12th, 2021, during tummy time, Tracy was lying on the mat in the block area for group time with materials. She turned her head toward Mrs. Tanya when she hears Miss Tanya's voice. So again, this note is complete. It has a date. It talks about who the note is about. It's Tracy, during what time, tummy time with group time and materials, where in the block area, and what happened. She turned her head towards Miss Tanya when she heard Miss Tanya's voice. So that is a complete and comprehensive note. Our second one happened August the 3rd, 2021. At drop-off time, when Derek's mother left and said, "See you later," Derek said, "Bye-bye." Very comprehensive. We're just talking about what we heard or what we saw. And notice that in this anecdotal note, we are using quotation marks because Derek's mother said, "See you later," and Derek responded with "bye-bye." So if your child or your children in your classroom have developed language communication skills where they are speaking, include what is being said in your note, if at all possible. And then our last example is Jamal kicked the ball to Cortez, and Cortez kicked the ball back to Jamal, and Jamal smiled while they were on the playground during outside time. So again, this note tells you the date, who is involved. This one involves two children, what happened, where it happened, and what part of the day while they were outside on the playground. So when we're writing our anecdotal notes, remember, I want to truly emphasize that we do not want to add anything to our notes. We do not want to use any opinionated words where we're saying, giving an explanation, or we're giving our opinion as to why certain things are happening. And we don't want to use assumptive words such as sleepy, because, thinks, feeling, angry, frustrated, happy, and we don't want to say probably as well. Those words, again, give your opinion, and we don't want to do that. We just want to record what actually takes place without adding any other words or any descriptive or adjective type language to the note. So let's talk about scoring notes. Now here on this slide, hopefully this picture is familiar to you. It is our COR Advantage flip chart. And on this flip chart, we have our core categories. We have 9 core categories: approaches to learning, social and emotional development, physical development and health, language and literacy and communication, mathematics, creative arts, science and technology, social studies, and English language learning. Sounds like a lot. In a prior slide, when I talked about the components of writing an anecdotal note, I emphasized keeping in mind where your note can be placed. So when we get to this COR Advantage flip chart, this helps us to decide where our note can actually be scored and show the development of that child. So underneath each of these categories, we have some core items, and we have, I believe it's 36 core items. I counted them the other day, but I'm not about to count them right now, but it's around 36. We do write anecdotal notes, or you're responsible for writing anecdotal notes for each of these core items, with the exception being English language learners. We do have some centers where our children are learning English as a second language, So those centers may write anecdotal notes for English language learners, but for the most part, we're writing anecdotal notes for approaches to learning all the way down to social studies, and the core items A all the way to double H. So what do you need in order to score your anecdotal notes? You only need two things. You need that flip chart, or sometimes I think we've sent it out. You may have it available on your computer, laptop as a electronic file, and you need your anecdotal notes. So what you're going to do is you're going to select a complete note that you have written, and you're going to use your COR flip chart to select the appropriate category for that note. Under the category heading, for example, the heading approaches to learning, you're going to select the item to be scored, then identify the score level that best fits your note. In our program, well, let's backtrack. So on that flip chart, there are underneath each item, there are score ranges from 0 to 7. Most infants and toddlers are going to score between 0 and 3, possibly 4. However, there may be exceptions. It's very rare that we will have early Head Start children who score a 5 to 7. I'm not saying that it's not possible, but it's very, very rare. For the most part, our score range for infants and toddlers is going to be between 0 and 3 and possibly 4. So let's score a note. So I'm going to take the examples that we had earlier, and I'm going to demonstrate here, go step by step to show you how you will score your anecdotal note that you have written. And we're going to take a look at the first note about Tracy, who was laying on her back during group time with materials, and her teacher said something and she turned toward her teacher. Okay, so first we're going to determine the category. This category for this note is approaches to learning. Then we're going to determine the item to be scored. When I look at the chart, the item to be scored was under item A, initiative and planning. And under item A, initiative and planning, level 0 said child turned toward or away from an object or a person. And that's exactly what that infant did. When she heard the voice, she turned towards that voice. She turned toward the person. So this anecdotal note is scored under approaches to learning, item A, initiative and planning, and it is scored at a level 0. So again, you want to look at your category. Underneath the category, you're going to find the item that your note fits under, and then you're going to look at the scoring levels, and you're going to score your note according to what actually happened or what was actually said. So we have another example here. This example is with Derek, whose mother said, "See you later," and Derek said, "Bye-bye." For this note, I am going to score this note under the category language, literacy, and communication, and under item M, listening and comprehending. This is a level 2. Child responds verbally to a simple statement or question. So when his mom said, "See you later," he responded with "bye-bye," showing that he understood, he's able to comprehend what his mother said and to respond appropriately to what she said to him. Our final example was Jamal and Cortez out on the playground, kicking the ball back and forth towards one another. And during this back and forth kicking, Jamal smiles. Jamal smiles at some point during this. So this category is social and emotional development. That's where I chose to place it. Item F, building relationships with other children. And I've scored it a level 2, child plays and works alongside, other children, because Cortez and Jamal are kicking the ball back and forth, and they're showing pleasure in kicking that ball back and forth and developing a relationship because he smiles at some point during their interaction. Now, understand that when you are writing anecdotal notes, you really want to have that flip chart with you, because notes can fall under more than one category. So you want to make sure that you are placing your notes under the appropriate category and under the item that best fits your anecdotal note, what note you took. I would suggest, just me personally, when you are writing your notes, it's very easy sometimes to get the notes for physical development and things of that nature. So when you are selecting your notes, some areas on the flip chart are a little more challenging, like community or science and technology, or the ones dealing with nature. You might want to focus on how your note might be able to apply to some of those more challenging areas to observe in your classroom, and get notes for those categories and items first, because later on for physical development or social development, you will have plenty of opportunities to find observations or to write observations for those category areas. And the last thing that I wanted to discuss with you before we move on is that when you're taking anecdotal notes, it's suggested that you take at least 3 notes per child per week. So if you are gathering or writing down your notes as much as possible on your children, you will have more than enough notes to enter into the COR Advantage program or software system by the end of the COR period. So just make sure you're taking notes frequently and that you are entering those notes into COR Advantage. So summing it all up, anecdotal notes are important because they show the growth of children, inform planning, guide program decisions, and professional development. Anecdotal notes, make sure when you are writing anecdotal notes, make sure that they are objective and free of opinionated or assumptive words, or words that try to explain what you are seeing or what you saw or what you heard the children do. Make sure that your notes are complete, in that it includes the date, who's the note about, what happened, when, and where. And finally, when you are scoring your anecdotal notes, make sure that you identify the category and the item, and then score your note appropriately for that level. Thank you.
And now that we've gone through writing a comprehensive anecdotal note, we're going to go into talking about lesson planning with the COR Advantage. Just as you use COR Advantage to input your anecdotal notes, this is also where you can create and share lesson plans. It's fairly easy to do this. And as a bonus, once you've entered the activity into the database, it allows you to save it there. So you can go back and click on the lesson plan, and if you need to make a slight adjustment, instead of typing in the whole activity again, you can just go in and make the changes that you need and save it. So lesson planning should be intentional. Intentional lesson plans help increase children's scores based on activities around core and KDI categories. It is okay to repeat lessons that you feel you might need to go back to, just in case you didn't catch something or children need to be scored appropriately. Intentional lesson planning based on activities helps you fill in those gaps, as Kim was saying. It might be hard to get some of those anecdotal notes on maybe object permanence or nature or something in mathematics. So you want to make a plan to look at any gaps in your data, and then plan small group activities for the missing core items that you have. Intentional lesson planning should be based on the children's interests as well. Observe during critical parts of the day. Create activities based on the materials the children enjoy. If you happen to notice that oftentimes during choice time, the children go over to the block area and they all want to play with the magnet tiles or things like that. Create lesson plans around what they use often. but it is also important to bring in new material as well. Lesson plans should be focused on curriculum content. Those are the core items in the KDIs. And also choose materials that best support the activity that you're working on. If you're trying to work on fine motor skills, you don't want to take them outside to play with the ball because that's more of a gross motor skill. They're using their large muscles and not the fine motor muscles, as like stringing beads or something like that. That's the kind of activity that you would want to use when you are creating those activities. So we're going to go into a demonstration of how to create a lesson plan in COR. So when you're creating a lesson plan in COR, it's pretty simple. Um, it's not like when you're writing in the book, you don't have to continuously write over and over again. Like I said, you have the activity database that you can use and refer back to. And even if you want to get some ideas from your teaching partners, or you can also look them up, just make sure that your lesson plans are reputable. So what I'm going to do now is go into COR and show you how to create a lesson plan. So here in Core Advantage, you're going to go, it's on the left-hand side of the screen, and it looks like a calendar, and it says Lesson Planner. And so what you're going to do is go into your lesson plan. The sections that should be in your lesson plan are arrival, reading time and literacy, group time with music and movement, choice time, group time with materials, a second group time with music and movement, outdoor time, component activities, which include dental, mental health, and nutrition, and a physical activity, as well as the individualized lesson plans. So as you go into the lesson plan here at arrival time, you're going to do or find an activity that matches that part of the day. So for arrival and greeting time, I chose the book Brown Bear, What Do You See? So at some point, one of the teaching partners will be greeting the children at the door and invite them into the classroom, and the other teacher will be sitting down with the children, engaging them in the book Brown Bear, What Do You See? Um, you can also have a few choices with this. You can read the book to the children, or you can just allow them, if you have a few copies of the book, to allow them to look through the book themselves. So then for the next activity, group time with music and movement, you would go in, you would find the activity that you want to use. And for this one, I chose If You're Happy and You Know It. This can be used as music and movement because they're singing, but they're also being physical with the song as well. Now for the area for choice time, this is where you're just pretty much observing the children throughout the day, and you can also collect anecdotal notes at this time, which is good. And then the next part is group time with materials. Here I chose exploring with finger paint. I say group time with materials is one of the best times to collect anecdotal notes for your small group of children. You have a smaller group, you're able to be more focused on that smaller group of children to see what they're doing, what they're saying, and how they're interacting with the material. So this is one of the best times to create your anecdotal notes. This is also the section where you want to highlight those KDI and those core items. So this would be considered the focus activity, and this is where you would tag those core items. So for this activity, you have initiative and planning, problem solving, problem solving with materials. And from the KDI side, you have initiative, problem solving, and exploring art materials. Now there is a section that says steps. It's not mandatory that you fill this section in, but if there's some special part that needs to be indicated on there, then you can just add it up under the steps. So then we will go down to outdoor time. You choose an activity for the children, kicking balls. You observe them outside for that as well. The component activities, you choose one for each day of the week, and for this one I chose why are foods healthy for our bodies. Down in the section for the individualized learning plan, you're going to take those individualized learning plans that you've formed on this sheet during parent-teacher conferences and home visits, and and you're going to take those and place them inside of the lesson plan. And you're going to do that by doing it up under the steps. So each number actually represents a child. Instead of using their name, you're going to use the number that's indicated on their individualized lesson plan sheet up in the right hand corner. So say for instance, I have a child and their number is number 1 on their individualized lesson plan. You're going to look at their goals under approaches to learning and place them at number 1. For each child that you have, up to, I believe it might be 8 children in the classroom, you're going to take each child's number from their IOP page. You're going to place it next to their name and write down or input what their individualized lesson plan goal is. For children that have individual family service plans, you would get those from Miss Rhonda after the parents and the teachers have had a meeting, and you will also input that under their individualized lesson plan goal. You would simply do that by using a semicolon, using in parentheses IFSP goal, and then you would type in the goal. And that's only for children who have individualized special plans. Each day of the week has a different goal from their IOP plan. So Monday would be approaches to learning. Tuesday would be social and emotional development. Wednesday would be cognitive and general knowledge. Thursday would be perceptual, motor, and physical language. And I believe Friday is language and literacy. So again, each day is a different goal from that plan, and you just go in and please make sure that the number on the IOP sheet corresponds to the numbers that you're inputting for the steps for the children in their lesson plan. So for example, if I wanted to go in and add in a group time with music for the second one, I can simply search lessons, and then I have a whole list of activities that have already been put in. You can just scroll down. You can do the 5 Little Monkeys. You can do, I think I might have saw a hot potato or something like that. Or you can also create new. And here you would just put in the name. If I didn't see hot potato, I can just type it in. I can say children will, I'm sorry, children will toss bean bag while playing hot potato. And that then you can add some tags if you want that can be interacting with other children, fine motor, gross motor, whatever you want to put in there. So that is how you enter your activities into the lesson plan. Make sure when you are done that you please print out your lesson plan. So you would hit the printer icon and you want to print out the weekly summary. When you print out the weekly summary, it's going to kind of look like a grid. It's not really detailed, but it does let you know just the names of the activities. It's not giving you the exact information on which core items and things like that will not appear on there. So just click on the printer icon and click weekly summary. And then you can also share with your teaching partners, or if you want to share it with your center director or even your child developmental specialist, that is when you want to use that share option. But this is what your lesson plan would look like when it's completely filled out. Please make sure that you do complete your lesson plans, and they are due by Monday of the following business week. So with your lesson plans, you want to remember to complete each section of the lesson plan, use anecdotal notes and observe to help create activities, tag your core and KDI items for the focus activity of the day, use the number from the IOP sheet to identify each child. If the child has an individualized plan or an individualized service plan, which I stated comes from Ms. Rhonda, please include it on their IOP section of the lesson plan, just separate it by the semicolon and make sure that you're entering it for the correct child. Lesson plans must be done by Monday morning at 8 a.m. And please print your weekly summary to be posted in the classroom. So, in summary, the session has addressed the importance of anecdotal note taking, its benefits, and scoring anecdotal notes, as well as how to use COR to create intentional lesson plans for your classroom. Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to your child developmental specialist. On the next slide, there are instructions to submitting your responses to receive credit for attending the training, so please don't forget. This is how you will submit your training questions. You can use your phone or your tablet with your camera, scan the QR code on the right, answer the questions on the Google document. Once you're finished, press submit, and at the end, you will receive a certificate for training at a later date. So please take your time, scan the code, submit your questions, and enjoy the rest of your day.